Lovely. Okay, so just over the other side of the road, I talked about kind of what we could see with Granary Square. We've got the grain building there, and Coal Drops Yard just there, and then the coal office just over there. Really want to think about how we can actually get that information down on paper, because I gave you loads and loads of information about the history of the area, what it's being used for now, and Miss talked about the leisure and the canals, and actually there are ways in which you can record that data. Now, you saw the historical photos on the sheet, and you can still see them on your sheet. And you can see how you could take comparative photos now, that re-photography idea. But actually, in terms of drawing out the most geography, this is where field sketches is a really good technique. So you can actually do a nice, clear, simple drawing of this and annotate it really clearly to draw that geography out. And the best thing about field sketches is with your NEA, you can actually focus those annotations to your question and actually think, well, do I need to talk about all the geography or just the geography that's relevant to my question? Now, with field sketches, a lot of people get really, I'm no good at art, I'm no good at art. Actually, so I did a calculation a little while ago, I've seen thousands and thousands of field sketches in the time I've been doing this. And actually, some of the ones that are the hardest to interpret are those that are good at art, where there's far too much detail. It's all about nice, simple, clear field sketches. So that is something to consider about how you can get kind of all the geography you can see. What we're going to do now is just going to do a short walk through Coal Drops Yard out to the canal and just have a look at what this area is like. I'll point out some key features. I want you just to think about, as we're doing, what these buildings used to be used for. Maybe think about how this might have looked post-industrial decline, or maybe how this might have looked when it was a bustle of industrial activity and lots of people were employed in this area. And we'll talk about kind of how it's changed, and you'll see some of the ways in which it's changed, and you'll also see how kind of modern it is. Now, I'm just going to turn the camera around, and the first thing I'd like to point out is actually I'm just going to step to the left slightly, we've got a kind of an information point here, we've got a kind of more information about where you're going to go over We Can Do It on it, and also you'll see over there a big arrow that says shop, eat and drink this way, Coal Drops Yard. So there is a lot of kind of branding here, a lot of messages being given about how this area would like to be kind of looked at. And just to bring it into kind of current times, all around the King's Cross area there are these automatic hand sanitisation stations. Now you can imagine they're not cheap. You can see them being ably demonstrated there. They're not cheap, as you can imagine, but obviously there is an image that is trying to be presented about this area, that it's safe, it's clean, it's modern, and actually if we see as we walk around any kind of messages, any signage, think about who that is, who has paid to put that there, why it is there, and what that is message that is trying to convey. So we're just going to walk through Coal Drops Yard, so between the kind of coal offices and Granary Square. Now, Granary Square, if you do a little bit of research, one of the things that will crop up is when the regeneration was first done, there were some fountains put in. Now, the fountains are currently, if I just spin round, the fountains are currently barriered off, and that's from a kind of a health and safety point of view. But the reason they made the news is the fountains there, you can actually control with an app on a phone, and people can control those fountains. And it was lots talked about kind of involving people with the regeneration, and actually just by being able to control the fountains, it linked people to the changes that were happening. So we're just dropping down into Coal Drops Yard now. You'll notice that there are all these arches on the left-hand side. Now, these arches have been rebuilt, but they've been rebuilt in the same way, in the same style that they were there when they were kind of there for the industrial purpose. So it's that idea of actually wanting to maintain that kind of link to the past. And you might think about why that is. Is it because that is a prestigious thing to link to? Is it to do with identity of the place? Is it to make it unique? So there's lots of reasons that might be, but you'll notice we've got kind of cafes, a cocktail bar, well, breakfast and cocktails and sandwiches, bit of everything really, wouldn't have them at the same time. We've got kind of, again, kind of old buildings here. This is an old building that has been completely redone. And again, we've got some fashion shops on the left. So kind of expensive lighting shop as well.
Expensive lighting. Very
expensive lighting. So again, this is going to give you a bit of an idea about kind of who is coming here, who's being targeted by the regeneration that's going on here. But you'll notice that there's it's all pedestrianised, there's lots of seating out for people to sit and chat, and actually that's not just a kind of a COVID thing, that is how it has been designed. I was here a few months ago before lockdown, and there was actually this area here that you're looking at, they put in a crazy golf, a temporary crazy golf. that you could come and kind of have a go at. So again, trying to kind of bring that leisure aspect in as well. Now, just looking up Coal Drops Yard, the glassy building with the black roof that's going across there, that's actually not part of the original building. That's been built as a kind of architectural addition to the area. And up there you might see kind of like the Samsung store. So again, it's that tech, okay. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to turn left and we're going to go through these arches and we're just going to see what we've got down here. Now what we're doing is we're actually going under through to the canal, which is, as we talked about, kind of that historical link to this area. And again, just having a look, we've got interpretation boards. So this tells you a little bit about kind of the area, what's in Coal Drops Yard. So it talks about kind of the fact they were built in 1851, finished in 1860, the coal offices we looked at, okay, and the idea that how it was used. And just talking about how, you'll notice that photo from the historical photos I showed you. And just looking here, that's how Coal Drops Yard worked. So the trains came in on top level and dropped the coal into hoppers. So that just gives you a bit of an idea about the historical thing. Okay, and Buildings of England, so they are remarkable. Okay, which is clearly, if you're a subscriber to Buildings of England, then you'll already know that, but I imagine not many of you are. So coming out onto the canal. Now this is quite interesting, I think, kind of clash of kind of history in this area to kind of how it used to be to how it is now. And you'll notice as we're walking up, I'm gonna have to give way to cyclists and runners. This is a really good link. So canals, you know, even though kind of movement of goods and things don't happen now, the towpath's great links. You can get through to Camden going this way, through to kind of Angel, yeah, and all the way to Stratford. So very, very popular. You'll see me having to move out of the way for runners. You'll see people fishing. So again, kind of leisure activities. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the fact that this wouldn't have been. There was a photo I showed you of kind of the rubbish and things that are in this canal. The locks have been re-maintained, but it's very much the identity of this area, the canal. So just walking up this slope here.
You'll even notice, guys, that in Wembley where we are and around Wembley, we do find that the sort of canals, the old canals that are around there, are becoming key parts of the regeneration projects in those areas, and they're trying to use them maybe to associate those regeneration projects with nicer quality of life, a better standard of living, maybe something similar to a lot of this inner London regeneration that's also happened.
So linking into that is the idea of linking communities. Now what we've got here is a bridge. Now this bridge is a new bridge that's been put in to Camberley Street Nature Reserve. Now Camberley Street Nature Reserve is kind of a London Wildlife Trust nature reserve that was lost some of its land to High Speed 1, but part of that deal was that they would get new links to Granary Square and actually have a new education centre built as well. So that's the building you can see if I zoom in. That's the new education centre at Camberley Street Nature Reserve. And again, that's something you might want to look up on the London Wildlife Trust website, is Camberley Street. But the idea of linking these communities, that used to be a bit out of the way, but now there's a direct link to Granary Square with a new bridge. So we're going to carry on going this way. You'll notice that the land use is starting to change. It's going from that kind of commercial, the shops and the entertainment, going back to that Rice Potts land use survey. And you'll see that we're getting round to some housing. But just as we walk past a lock, it's going to be a bit noisy. They've turned the gas holders into housing. So you'll notice, or you'll remember, sorry, from the map that we looked at, that there were those circular gas holders on the map. Now, actually, if you look carefully at that map, the gas holders were right next to King's Cross Station, which is all the way over there. And what they've actually done is they actually completely dismantled the gas holders. They took them away. They took them to a town up in the north of England to be repainted and reconditioned, and they rebuilt them in this location, a different location, and in the middle they've built some housing, and we'll go and have a look a bit closer at what that looks like. But again, clearly not a cheap way to build housing. So there are questions about why they have chosen to build housing in that way. And again, just to move away, getting a bit quieter away from the lock. You'll notice on the left there's some of the old canal kind of buildings and boatyards and things. So there is still that link, and you'll see that holder in front of us there, it's empty, and then the holders to the right that do have housing in. So as we walk, I'm just going to keep talking. You'll notice as well, we've got quite a lot of kind of open land, we've got grass and things here. So if you were to live in one of these old gas holders, Obviously, you haven't got a garden, you haven't got kind of outside space, and we talked about kind of living environment deprivation as being one of the things that was a issue for King's Cross before the regeneration. Well, actually, providing nice housing can help with barriers to housing and services and living environment deprivation, but there is also the idea of kind of recreational areas and things, which we'll talk a little bit more about as we go on. It might be worth having a bit of a look. We've got NC1 is the kind of branding for this area, and that's who's selling the housing, and you might want to have a look online and see if you can kind of find how much it costs to rent or to buy here, and actually think about, we talked about kind of who's welcome in this area, actually who could maybe afford to live in this area, who's this area maybe targeted at, so that might be something to think about, because as you can see, they're quite nicely finished kind of housing. In this gas holder here, we've got like an open park area, which I'll just hop up that you can look at, so that's kind of providing that kind of open space. It's going to look a bit weird because it's all mirrored. So we've got this kind of open park area, and then we're just going to walk past one of these, and then we'll stop the video at that point, but there's just a couple of bits I want to show you about what we can see. So these gas holders are the original gas holders, and you'll notice at the base they've got the original plates from when they were built, which says they're erected in 1861, and telescoped means extended, because the way gas holders work, there's a very good video on YouTube by Tom Scott about gas holders that I recommend you watch if you're not sure how they work. But the idea is that they went up and down as the amount of gas in them was kind of increased and decreased. Now, you don't get them as much in urban areas. So it used to be that you brought the gas in and they were stored for local use, but now electricity networks have improved so much that you don't need that local gas storage. So you'll see we've got these buildings here now. Clearly we're in an area that is still being changed, and you'll notice cranes in the background, and we've got this cherry picker here. Now, something quite interesting about this cherry picker is what's on the tyres, and they've actually got covers on the tyres, and I don't know why that is, but my assumption would be that actually it's about not damaging this area. So obviously the tyres could rip up the new paving. So again, it's about looking after this area. Okay, not leaving massive tyre tracks all over. So again, it's about presenting an area, and you know how much cost and thought goes into that, because it's about presenting this area. And one last thing I want to mention is on the right here, we talked about outside space and kind of transport. We know we're very close to kind of the train stations, but actually what we've got here, what look like lift entrances, but you might notice at the top, it says car park clearance. This is actually underground car parking. So if you live here, you can drive in, go in, and it's like a lift for your car, and it will take your car down to the lower car park.
Very James Bond.
Very James Bond indeed. And on the left, we've got a school, which you might have noticed on your mapping when you're doing a land use mapping.
This is a
marked.
school?
Yes, it is. Yes. So
Only the first 2 floors?
Only the first 2 floors, yes, and then
then
the housing
residential
above it. So if we go up, we can see the residential.
But primary school?
Yes, primary academy. Yeah, and then we've still got buildings here. Lovely. So I think that's all I wanted to mention at that point. So I'm going to stop the video here.